Dead easy to learn snowboarding, they said. Hit a young chap like you who's done a bit of skiing. All you need are baggy pants and a bit of attitude. Well, I did sort of learn, but pretty badly, as you can see. Because what I didn't realise is there's a logical teaching progression. And there are people like her. That's Becky Malthouse, 6 times British champion. She's also raced on the ISF World Cup. More to the point though, she's a Basie BSA snowboard trainer. I think she's had something to do with the FIS, or is it the BAF? I've got it here. MI5.
Excuse me. I think what he's trying to get at is that these organisations involved with snowboarding have developed a fast and simple way to learn to snowboard.
That's exactly what I meant to say. And in this programme, we aim to show you how easy it is to learn this fantastic sport, so long as you get help from a proper instructor.
In the first section, I'm going to demo the simple progression from standing on your board through to basic heel and toe turns.
Then I'll find a couple of complete novices and hand them over to Becky to see if she really can get them motoring in just a couple of days.
And after that, I'll look for a self-taught klutz with a load of rotten habits and straighten him out. You'll do.
Oh, fine. And apparently, with my technique polished, in section 5 we stay safe on the mountain, looking at the rules of the road and how to make the most out of various weather and snow conditions.
Next, we examine the kit, notably the different board designs and binding setups, and see how the subtlest tweaks can make a significant difference to your performance.
And in a self-indulgent wrap-up, we reveal what you might hope to achieve if you lose all sense of reason. It all starts with scooting, the best way to get around on the flat, as well as helping you get used to having a plank on your foot. From there, with the back foot attached, we find the gentlest of slopes and move on to straight running and immediately work on a relaxed posture. On a steeper slope, the next progression is side slipping, controlling your speed by altering the angle of the edge, first looking down the hill on your heel side edge and then facing the hill on your toe side edge. With a little shift of weight during the side slip, we move on to the forward or diagonal side slip. It's all about developing edge control. The next progression is the falling leaf, which involves floating forwards and backwards down the foreline, very much as the name suggests. And as with all the exercises, we'll do them both on the toe and the heel side. The final step before the first complete turn is the garland, which introduces steering towards and away from the fall line. You loop across the hill by heading down the slope and then swinging back up. Your track ends up looking like a garland. And then by linking all those sliding, weight transfer and steering skills, you get to perform your basic heel and toe turns. And there endeth the first lesson.
Alright geezers, anyway.
So, anyway guys, what about this morning? I was totally stoked on those freshers.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that hit this afternoon.
Yeah, the transition was a bit whippy, but I got a nice shifty off that kick.
Back 360, Tim.
Cheers.
Cool. Can I come and ollie around with you geezers sometime? Because I want to check out my chicken McTavishes.
Well, snowboarding, as you can see, has its very own culture and its language, which some know a bit better than others. But you don't have to be a part of that to start, and to prove it, we're going out in the street to find 2 totally normal human beings who've not so much as sniffed a snowboard in their life before. So, Hair Director, where do you reckon we're going to find these people then? Ski school, High Street?
We'll try the high street, huh?
Okay, let's go.
Hey, check this out.
Right. What I say? Come on. Excuse me, I wonder if you'd mind asking just a few questions. We're doing some snowboarding, and would you like to be a beginner?
No, Entschuldigung, ich verstehe Sie leider überhaupt nicht.
Good start. Perhaps an English speaker might be better. Come on, look.
Excuse me, sir, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe you're off skiing.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know you've forgotten your sticks?
Oh, not again.
Never mind, never mind. How would you like to be taught to snowboard by the 6 times British champion?
Yeah, that'd be cool. You must be brilliant.
Sorry, Becky. Come on, then. Excuse me, I can see you're busy, but we're looking for people who might like to learn to snowboard. Would you be interested?
Snowboard? That's what I do for a living.
Oh, yeah, good choice. Sorry, thanks anyway. First choice snowboard guide. I sure can pick him, eh? Here we are. Excuse me, sir, we're making a video for Basie. I was wondering... Instructor, eh? This place is full of them. Hey, don't we know him? Excuse me, mate. What's your name? Your name?
Oh, Spiky, man.
I do, Sparky. You off to a bit of snowboarding, I see.
Yeah, geezer, look at this. It's cool, isn't it?
Done much before?
No, but I've done a bit of street, bit of skate, you know, a bit of surf, you know, try it all out. It's going to be easy, man, easy.
So you don't fancy any free lessons then?
Nah, I don't need none of that, mate. No.
Sure. Well, maybe see you on the piece then, Sparky.
Yeah, monster geezer.
OK. Need just one more, don't we?
Yeah, girl would be good.
And where are we going to find one of them at this time of day?
Oh, check it out.
Excuse me, miss. I wonder if you might answer a couple of questions. First of all, are you here for the skiing?
No, the après ski.
Indeed, yes. And have you ever skateboarded before, anything like that?
In those shoes.
Indeed, yes. Well, would you mind taking part in a little snowboard experiment?
I'm game for anything.
Well, first of all, I think we better get you dressed properly.
Thermal breathable underwear saves the need for stacks of bulky clobber. Thereafter, well, jeans may give you attitude, but they also give you hypothermia, since they have no thermal properties and absorb water like a sponge. Today's boarders wear looser fitting pants, sweaters and lightweight tops made of high-tech fibres. This gives freedom of movement and maintains a constant temperature in the ever-changing mountain weather. Specialist snowboard gloves are reinforced and some have wrist supports. And to retain body heat, a hat is de rigueur.
Feeling comfortable and looking good, our recruits are now off to gather some hardware. In the early stages, it's a good idea to hire, and classy operators like First Choice will always recommend stores where both the equipment and advice are excellent.
Hello, I'll help you.
Yeah, we'd like some snowboarding gear, please.
Yeah, have you ever snowboarded before?
No, complete beginners.
Yeah, so maybe we look for the boots. You know your size?
39.
39?
And 44.
And 44.
Selecting boots? There are 2 basic options, hard or soft. Indeed, some have their first attempts using their original ski boots. But for learning and progressing, I'd recommend soft boots every time. Unlike many ski boots, they're as pain-free as a pair of carpet slippers.
They should be tight, but not uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a super snug pair of carpet slippers, because to perform properly, they must hold the foot to keep you in direct contact with the board.
These feel a bit tight around here.
Is it? Just stand up and kick your heel. Is it better now?
Yeah, it feels better, but they're still a bit too tight.
Is it too small? So we look for a larger one. Yours is all right?
And don't be pressed into taking the first pair you try. Reinhardt will pretend to be quite happy to persevere all day.
No, it still feels okay.
It's all right. So we look for a larger one.
Okay.
Looks like our guys have got their boots all sorted out. Now all we need to do is find out if they're going to be regular or goofy. There are, of course, 2 ways to stand on a board, and you have to decide on a preference so you know which way to fix the bindings. If you ride with your left foot forwards, you're regular. But riding with the right foot forward, and I'm sorry to report, you're goofy. Those who have done a board sport before, such as surfing or skating, will usually have a preference. Somebody who has no idea, a good way is to step onto a skateboard. The first foot they put on is usually the strongest front foot. For me, it's the left. I'm regular.
The first thing is...
Learn to use the bindings in the shop. First attach the leash to the front leg. This stops the board sliding off when you're getting in and out of the bindings. These are typical soft bindings that you use with soft boots. They've got 2 straps. Fasten the front one firmly, but not too tight or you'll get cold toes. The ankle strap is the important one because it pulls the boot into the heel cup and holds the foot securely in the binding. We'll be going into the business of boards and setting up bindings in more detail later on. The hire shop should set the width and angle of the bindings for an easy start. There are hundreds of different board designs.
So what sort of board do I need?
For a beginner, a short board is easier.
Short in this case means not much higher than chin height. Why short? Because smaller boards turn more easily, and that's just about it. Hey, wait up you guys. Now, before we head off, we really need to check we've got everything we're going to need on the mountain. So, hats, goggles, glasses if we get the sunshine, gloves, lip cream and suntan lotion. Really important, even on a cloudy day, you need good sun protection. Lift passes. I think that's just about it. Shall we rock and roll?
The right clothing and equipment properly set up and in the company of the British champion. Things are looking good for these two. But the route that most debutantes take, especially if they're on the macho side, is to head straight up the mountain, strap the thing on and see what gives. And so it is that the first day snowboarding is so often likened to being run over by a truck. But it really needn't be like that. And right on cue, here's Becky leading her charges to a place that's more akin to a large billiard table than Everest.
Right then, we're here.
Isn't all this a bit flat?
Well, where do you want to go? To the top of the mountain? Don't forget, you've never snowboarded before, and we want to start off in a good way so that you can learn to get good balance on your board. First things first, I think we'll do a little warm-up.
Warm-up? But I've been dancing in the disco all night.
Yeah, but that was quite a while ago now. We need to warm up properly before snowboarding to lessen any chance of injuries. Right, pop your boards down out of the way. Make sure you put them down on their bindings because they don't have any brakes, and we want to make sure they don't slide off down the hill. Grab hold of this lot, you guys. Just follow me. Right, now that we're ready, you can grab your boards, clip your front foot in, and we're ready for scooting. It may be flat here, but when it's steep you'll need your leash. Get into the habit of putting it on before you clip in.
As Becky said, with no brakes, there's nothing to stop the board sliding off when it's the right way up. And left to its own devices, it will quickly begin to do what it does best, and even on the shallowest of inclines. And the damage it can cause is just too horrible to describe on a family programme.
The aim of scooting is to keep the board flat on the snow and use the back foot to push along as if you were on a skateboard. To maintain your balance, you have to keep the weight on the front leg. Scooting is the best way to get used to being on your board. It's also handy for that whole drag lift thing later on. Now it's your turn. Because Annabelle isn't standing on her front foot, the board can't glide. It's all a bit of a struggle, really. Xander, however, prefers to gallop along with the board rather than let it slide. He just needs to leave it on the snow.
With the weight more on the front foot, Annabelle looks a lot more comfortable, but how does she feel?
Whoa, Annabelle. First time on a snowboard, how does it feel?
Oh, I'm really not sure about this at all.
Why?
Well, it just feels really strange having something strapped to your foot.
You are making a bit of progress, though.
Yeah, I suppose I am. Maybe I'm getting there.
We're in a perfect spot here to do some of our first exercises because we can clip the back foot in without the board sliding away. All we're going to do is have a straight run down the hill while you balance over your board. Don't worry about when you get to the bottom because it's a flat enough slope. You'll just naturally come to a stop. You won't have to do anything. So just give yourself a wriggle to set off and don't forget to smile. This is where we sort out your basic posture. That's to say, the way you stand on the board. It's the foundation for all advanced riding, and getting it right now will save you a lot of grief later on. To end up nice and relaxed on the board, you should turn your head to see where you're going, keep the hands slightly away from the body to help you balance, have your upper body facing the same direction as the front foot, and keep the legs gently flexed with the weight shared equally between both feet. The guys both look a bit tense on their first runs, which is only normal. Annabelle's aeroplane arms show she's probably using muscles she never knew she had. However, this exercise takes her mind off things and helps her loosen up. And this one exaggerates bending and stretching the legs, which is going to be a key element of turning later on. Clipping your back foot on the flat was dead easy. Well, now I'm going to show you how we can do it when we're on a slope. Obviously, to get up there, if you keep your board flat, you're going to go nowhere fast. What you need to do is turn your board around so it's across, dig the edge in so that you can get some grip as you walk up the slope. Once you get to where you want to go, just drop your back foot below you, and then you can swing the back of the board round, and that enables you just to sit down, and then you can put your back foot in with no problem. That's all very well and good if you want to start off on your heel side. Otherwise, you're going to have to lift the nose of the board up and use your whole body to make yourself roll over. And then you're ready to go.
Well, despite disco fatigue, Annabelle storms away. And with a bit of practice and coordination, you'll soon fly uphill.
Right, well, now that you've got good posture and you can balance on your boards, we need to figure out how to use the brakes on these things. We're going to do that trying side slipping. Now, we need to have the slope a little bit steeper than it was before, and I think this looks just about perfect. You use side slipping for speed control. Keeping the board across the slope with the weight over both feet, you can move directly down the fall line. To speed up, stretch the legs and flatten the board to the snow slightly. To slow down, bend the legs and tilt the board onto its edge. Okay, here we go. Use one hand on the snow. That's it. Now just put your hands over my hands. Flatten the board a tiny bit and wait till you start moving. Look up, look where you're going. That's it, nice and smooth. And then just dig your edges in again when you want to slow down and stop. Good, not bad at all. Have a go at it on your own this time. Is that a bit tricky? All right, try this. Put your hand in really close to your hip and bring your shoulders over the front of the board. Use this spare hand to reach out as if you were grabbing onto a bar to help pull yourself up, and keep your heel edge digging in at the same time. That's it, you've got it. Okay, really gently squeeze your toes down. Try and make it smooth. Right, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, what I'd like you to do, to make it less jerky, I want you to imagine you've got some soft fruit under your toes. Give me the soft fruit of your choice.
I think it's got to be plums.
Okay, plums it is. Right, you're going to squeeze these plums and try and squeeze the juice out of them so that you can get it out without actually breaking the skin. So you've got to be really gentle. Okay, do you think you can do that?
Yep.
Let's try it.
Okay.
Yep, you up? Right, here we go. Just gently. Okay, they're a little bit squashed, aren't they? Nice and easy. That's better. You got your balance? Feel okay?
Yeah.
There you go. See if you can carry on your own. Because Xander doesn't manage to keep the weight on both feet, the nose of the board points down the hill and he goes too fast.
And here's another classic mistake. If you flatten the board off too much, you'll catch the downhill edge and take a tumble for sure. And after a tumble, always swing the board across the slope before you stand up. Believe me, I've had plenty of practice. Now, with better balance and with minimal fruit abuse, Xander is sliding with grace and purpose.
Xander, it seems to me that your plums have got a bit more juice in them now, and your edges are controlling better. What's Becky told you to make the difference?
I think it's purely down to flexibility. Initially I was a bit rigid, but then Becky told me to start bending and stretching my legs a bit more, and that seems to do the trick.
Off you.
Thank you.
Side slipping on your toe edge is easier because you need less effort to tilt the board and control the pressure. But you have to make a special effort to see where you're going. Of course, Becky has done a bit before, but just check out how little effort she uses because she's balanced, loose and flexible.
With the diagonal side slip, you can start to change direction. A small shift of weight towards the nose of the board means that you'll side slip diagonally across the slope. Xander finds out that flattening the board makes it turn towards the fall line and he's off. Annabelle keeps the edge gripping along the whole length of the board and shifts her weight well, but her straight legs make it a bit of a bumpy ride. By adding steering to all the skills learned so far, you create this sweeping action that gives the exercise its name, the falling leaf. Right, don't forget that when we do the falling leaf, this is where we introduce steering. So use your feet as your steering wheels. Press down your toes on one foot, and that encourages that end of the board to slide down the hill. Then you can take over with the other foot, and that's how you get this swingy, falling leaf motion.
Okay,
Yeah?
I'll give it a go.
Great. This time Xander gets the technical bits right and his no-fear attitude allows him to deal calmly with the acceleration.
At the moment, Annabelle lacks that confidence, and because she doesn't want to pick up any speed, she never flattens off either end of the board. So Becky decides to move down the slope with her to lend a hand. That's the advantage of having an instructor.
Remember, on the toe side it's harder to see where you're going. Use the swing across the slope as an opportunity to check what's below you. The garland is a series of falling leaves in one direction across the slope. It lets you practice the beginning and end of the turn, but without ever having to cross the fall line. You start as per falling leaf, shifting the weight a little onto the front foot to help you steer towards the fall line. You slow down by steering with the back foot to bring the board across the slope, finishing with the weight spread equally on both feet.
OK, chaps, follow that. Becky recognised that Annabelle was more mobile on the dance floor than she was on her board, so she gave her this exercise. Stretching as she turned towards the fall line, and then bending as she slowed down to improve her steering. By contrast, Xander already had an over-enthusiastic torso, so Becky reined him in by making him hold his knees. He then had to concentrate on turning with his feet and not his upper body.
Well, have you guys had enough of climbing up yet?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, well now that you have enough control to come down the slope safely, we can start using the lift to get back up again. Here in Hinterglen we've got a nice little rope tow. Other resorts have all sorts of lifts, so for top tips of how to get up the mountain, there's a whole section on it later. Okay, what we're going to do is leave our back foot free so that we can scoot around to the lift. You can then use your back foot on the stomp pad so that it doesn't slide off. keep the board flat, facing right up the hill, and we're going to hold on to the red bars with both hands, as if you're water skiing. Slide on up to the top. When you get there, just put your back foot on the ground so that you can scoot away. If you do take a bit of a tumble, don't worry at all. Just roll over to the side and clear the track as quickly as you can and wait for me there. Any questions?
Nope. No.
Okay, right, let's go. Right, get your board nice and flat, pointing up. Stand your foot on the back. Have you got balance?
Yep.
Right, there's a handle coming up. Get ready to start gripping. That's it. Keep your arms straight. Keep the board flat. We'll see you at the top.
Okay.
No problem. Xander gets the landing exactly right. As soon as he reaches the top, he scoots well clear before sitting down to clip in his back foot.
So let's recap. The aim so far has been to develop a relaxed posture, good steering skills, which then lead to better balance, and leave our guys at least in fine shape to try some basic turns.
Okay, Annabelle, we're going to try some basic turns. So like the Garlands, we're going to steer down the hill, but instead of going to all the trouble to turn back across, we're going to make it easier and we're just going to carry on steering the way we started. So I'm going to come with you and I'm going to help you through the turns. Okay. So just let me hold your hands. You're going to use your front foot as your accelerator. Push it round, onto your toes, slow down with your side slip. Perfect. Now, stand up nice and tall. Use your front heel as your accelerator. Keep steering round and slow down with that. That's perfect. Now we'll do one more turn. Stand up, weight onto your front foot, use that accelerator, start sinking down. Excellent. Feel good?
Becky's turns are a lot more flowing because she's coordinating all the movements. The chief difference between this and the Garlands is that the edge actually changes during the turn. She starts on her heel edge, flattens the board off into the fall line, and then rolls onto the toe edge to finish off the turn.
Annabelle's turns didn't start too brightly. On the first attempt, she didn't even make it through the fall line. Shame about the glasses. Then things began to look up. This time, the glasses stayed on. She kept tripping up because she was rushing the edge change. She got away with it on the heel side, which is easier, but not on the toe side. She made her first successful turns on both sides when she let the board roll flat before tilting onto the new edge, even though at this stage she resorts to throwing her upper body around. Eventually she gets the steering and bending and stretching right, and it all looks rather smooth.
But she really slapped the icing on the cake when she let the board run and got a little speed up. With the weight off the board, she began to flow like a true pro.
Hey, Annabelle! Slow down! That's incredible. Now, did you honestly think when you came here on your après ski holiday that you'd leave knowing how to snowboard?
Absolutely no way.
But in the beginning you did have just a little bit of a crisis, didn't you?
I did. It just felt so strange when I first got on the board and I was all strapped in. But then Becky started to show me some exercises and I started to loosen up and gain some confidence. And now I'm making turns.
And you're covering the mountain with some style.
Absolutely.
So what's the plan from here?
Well, there is one problem. I'm just too knackered to go to the disco.
So how about an early night?
Xander's technique is temporarily put aside as he puts all his concentration into just getting round those turns. He just needs to remember the basics. Then his early solo efforts took him off-piste, which was perhaps a little ambitious at this stage. but a bit more speed and confidence, and he's starting to incorporate the good techniques he learned earlier. Then, off on his own and full of youthful bravado, he goes too fast and it all starts to go a bit pear-shaped. He disregards everything he's learned and adopts a sort of Quasimodo survival stance. A common fault with many who don't take lessons.
It didn't take long to remind Xander of the basics, and once Becky got him to stand up again and slowed him down a little, he soon began to coordinate all the steering and weight change elements needed to make smooth basic turns.
Xander looking a lot better than yesterday. Well, I have to say, you look quite sort of hunched up and out of control. What's Beck told you that's made all the difference?
Well, I think the main tips were that she said, keep your hands over the ends of the board, make sure your shoulders are nice and high, and make sure your knees are bent most of the time, especially when you're slowing down.
So what does that make you feel like when you're boarding?
Brilliant, it's just so much more comfortable and just much more confident as well.
Excellent.
By the last day, his body language reveals all. He is totally into the thrill and exhilaration of snowboarding. From this point on, he just needs a little help as he keeps progressing to make sure he doesn't shoot off the rails as he did before.
Alexander, I reckon in 2 days, thanks to Becky's lessons, you've come about as far as I have in 2 weeks. And the fact that you're still out here on the floodlit piste at nearly midnight suggests that you're hooked. How do you like it compared to your skiing?
I love it. It's so much fun and it's so fast. It's really easy to pick up and you get these nice comfy boots.
I hate you. Let's go.
As promised, here's our further guide to getting up the hill. There are various modes of transport. The longer trips out of the valley will often be taken by the cable car or the 4, 6 and 8 man bubble cars. No great technique needed here, you just sort of walk into them. But when it comes to taking chair lifts and drag lifts such as the button tow and the infamous T-bar, there are a few things you need to know.
Different types of chairlift take anything from 1 to 6 people, but the procedure for getting on and off is much the same. With the back foot out, scoot onto the platform. Look round as the next chair arrives, catch it with one hand and sit down. After a clean takeoff, pull the safety bar down and lift your board onto the rest. As for getting off, lift the bar well in advance, edge forward to the front of the chair, make sure the tip of your board is up and then slide away with your back foot on the stomp pad. And if you do experience a rough landing, just move off to the side and clear the runway.
There's a bit of etiquette too. Although our board hangs sideways, we don't need a chair all to ourselves. Boarders and skiers can rise together in perfect harmony. And when getting off, it's really not the done thing to use your fellow man as a mobile crutch, then head off at right angles to cut him up. Hold your line until you're well clear. Drag lifts. I don't mind telling you, I've had a few problems with these, but only because I wasn't sure what to do.
OK then, let's start with button lifts. Some leave both feet in. Normal practice is to unclip the back foot. Then you can use it to scoot yourself into position and to help you balance as you take off. With the board pointing up the hill, grab the pole, slip it behind your front leg, bend a little to absorb the pull before putting the back foot onto the stomp pad. From there, it's a case of relaxing, keeping the board flat and letting it follow its own course over the ruts. As you reach the top, pull the pole with both hands and throw the button away. Make sure you scoot out of the way before the next bloke has a chance to run you down.
T-bars were originally designed to drag 2 skiers and not 2 laterally mounted boarders. So Spiky can perhaps be forgiven for his unconventional approach, although he probably used less energy walking up. But where there's a Becky, there's a way, and just by tucking a prong behind the front leg, you hitch a painless, uncontorted ride to the summit. And if you weren't friends at the bottom, you certainly will be by the time you reach the top.
All right, boys.
Happy? A good trip?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, not bad.
What are you doing now?
Going for a ski.
Skiing? You're supposed to be snowboarding.
Listen, I love snowboarding and all that, but Frank, in that last section, watching Xana get to my level in 2 days, thanks to Becky, has sort of taken the wind out of my sails, and I'm going to stick to what I know best. Now, have you got the keys for this thing?
I certainly have, but you're not having them. Come on, take this.
What do you want me to do with this?
Well, Becky's waiting for you at the top of the mountain, and she can do for you what she's done for Xander, so come on.
I very much doubt it. We'll give it one more go.
Well, made it, finally. Now that you're here, what exactly do you want to do?
Well, I reckon I represent 90% of all those snowboarders who try to work this out for themselves. 2 days, I'm covering the mountain, think I'm making great progress, and that's it. As soon as I reach anything like ice or steep slope, I'm washing my turns out, I'm sliding all over the place and just feel out of control. And I'm thinking about going the other way.
The other way?
You know, back to those skiing things.
I don't think you need to quite do that. But I'm sure there are a few basic things that we can have a look at that are really going to help you out. Fancy a go?
Shall we?
To be disarmingly honest, I was suffering from a common condition called MIS, that's male impatience syndrome. You see, having learned to ski, I didn't want to go through another total humiliation phase. So I attacked snowboarding like a bull on Viagra in search of some kind of fast-track competence, hence my technical inadequacy. So with the pride stifled if not completely buried, I laid myself open to the mercy of the one-woman jury. Well, there's a good start.
Pete has no rhythm or flow in his riding, and his weight is all over the place. His bad posture causes him to make awkward, jerky movements, which really doesn't help his balance. He doesn't bend his legs, so he ends up turning the board by throwing his upper body around, which won't do at all. We've got to take him back a few steps before he can get onto the stuff he really wants to do. So here's the plan of how we're going to rebuild him. Start with getting some rhythm into his boarding, and then using some upper and lower body exercises to make sure he's initiating the turns with his legs and feet, and not his arms and shoulders. The first exercise is to exaggerate the up and down movement. Count yourself up and down to get gradual rhythm. Up, 1, 2, 3, and down, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7. I suppose I look a little better. My legs aren't quite as straight and there is a hint of flex. But as far as flow goes, well, I still look like Bambi on acid.
A good way to improve rhythm is to do a bit of synchronised riding. Turn with someone who's calling the shots, not just when you feel like it. Pete's keeping up, but his whole form is still being corrupted by those windmill arms. Here's an exercise to neutralise his upper body. Putting the hands on the hips goes a long way to shutting the arms up and encouraging the shoulders to follow the board. Visibly, this has worked for Pete. Because it's harder to use his arms, he doesn't, and automatically starts to steer with his feet. We now need to make him more aware of his edges. In this exercise, the hands imitate the feet as they make the edge change. So for the toe side turn, drop the front hand as you press on the toes of the front foot. Drop the back hand as you press on the toes of the back foot. For the heel turn, tilt the front hand as you tilt the front foot, and tilt the back hand as you tilt the back foot.
First hands on hips, then she has me wafting around like a drag queen. I was seriously worried about my social standing. However, this exercise was a revelation. Firstly, I'd never deliberately changed the edges with my feet before. It had just sort of happened, or not as the case may be. And I'd never been aware of the feet working independently, nor of that forward and back shift of weight. It's now a whole new board game.
For more positive steering and smoother turns, we can now introduce the concept of leg turning. On the heel side, turn the front leg into the slope. On the toe side, rotate the leg away from the slope.
This seemed an odd one, and that with the foot locked to the board, what good would turning a knee do? But it does work. It seemed to help me anticipate the turn and got my body moving in the right direction.
When I first decided to give this a go, I thought, I'll have no problem because I've done a bit of surfing, and all this is surely surfing the mountain. Big mistake, because in surfing you use a lot of upper body to make the board turn, which you don't in snowboarding, as Becky taught me. And it's when I started to let my legs do the work and keep my shoulders still and follow the board that I really started to make progress.
Well, Pete, how do you feel now?
Can't believe the difference it's made. I mean, and it's only simple things you said, isn't it? Everyone thinks it's just so complicated.
Well, we've tried to keep it nice and simple so it all makes sense in bite-sized chunks. But what do you want to do next?
Well, I still feel, having watched you go down, that when it gets steep and a little bit tricky, I tend to revert back to my old habits, and I still don't feel that edge control I got on the skis, so a bit of carving and that sort of thing would be really useful.
All right, what we'll do then, we'll have a look, we'll try some carving on nice easy slopes, and I think we'll also try and tackle some steep bits and what to do when it gets icy. And how about paths?
I hate paths.
I think we'll have a look at those as well.
Okay.
So what actually is carving? Well, check out the differences between the following runs. There's this one. And this one. Well, obviously this one is a lot faster. But look again, and you can see that in these basic turns, the board slides round and is only on its edge at the beginning and end of the turns. But here, apart from the microsecond in which the edge is changed to start a new turn, the board is on its edge for the whole arc and literally carves a track through the snow. How? Through the feet pressuring the middle of the board, it bends, and if the edge is gripping, follows that curve. The task is now to get Pete edging harder. To keep the edge biting round the whole turn, you start by driving off the front foot and finish by driving off the back foot. So in this exercise, we're just concentrating on the forward-backward weight shift. You can see how by driving hard off the back foot, I'm catapulted into the next turn.
By making such a deliberate shift from front to back foot, I became much more sensitive to where the pressure was at each stage of the turn. I was certainly sliding around less, but sadly I reckon my board was angled at 10 degrees to Becky's 90.
It's true. The more you tilt the board, the more the edge bites. As a way to help you tilt it more, imagine you're being paid millions by a board manufacturer and are duty-bound to show the world the logo on the bottom.
You feel a bit vulnerable carving hard, in the knowledge that if the edge lets go, you slide flat onto your, whatever. But this exercise helps you take your mind off that, and perhaps the sponsor isn't ecstatic with the amount of exposure he's getting, but on the heel side especially, the need to show my bottom made me think really about lifting my toes. The result, a lot more grip.
Getting back to our basic turns for a moment, look at the point where the edge is changed. The edge isn't actually changed until after the fall line, so there's quite a time when the board is flat. In the carved turn, the aim is of course to keep the board on the edge. So this final exercise is all about changing the edge as early as possible. In contrast to the basic turn, you can see it happens well before the fall line. The board is flat for only the briefest moment.
Changing the edge so early to begin with made me feel as if I was going to trip, but only because I was going too slowly. But as soon as I picked up speed, I could apply pressure to the board, felt it bend, and really began to leave my tracks in the snow. And on the subject of tracks, well, Becky had a few things to say about them. She told me, however brilliantly we thought we were doing, the lines we leave behind reveal all. Unsurprisingly, these perfect examples are Becky's. A sharp line, a moment of flat as the edge is changed, followed by another fine line. And this is my slightly less ideal trail. A rather wide trough, revealing a touch of edge slip, a slightly hesitant edge change, and another wide trough. Still, I'm getting there, sort of, so long as it's flat. Here I am on the steep, and it's the same old story. I hit the fall line, panic, lean back, catch an head, and it's good night.
The exercise to get Pete onto the steep slopes is the hockey stop. So called because the aim is to swing quickly to a halt like an ice hockey player. Let the board run into the fall line and with a big sink down, turn across the slope.
I suppose what was worrying me was that on a board, unlike my skis, you can't control your speed in the fall line with a little snow plough. Acceleration equals panic equals return to my old mistakes. Note the shoulders. But with a few goes, I realised that I just needed to do everything I was doing before, that's the up and down, the edge change and the knee steer, but a bit faster and more aggressively. Steep slopes, no problem.
I like your confidence, Pete. All you have to do now is link those hockey stops and you can handle just about any slope with style.
We're talking about fundamental changes in my technique. I suppose it's got to be the edges. And since Becky's got hold of me, I've now learnt that they're my friends rather than my enemies. Because when I learnt, I fell over so many times tripping up on them that I began to mistrust them. But now I can let the board run on its edge. Of course, it'll cut through all the bad snow and give me that extra control when conditions get steep like here, or just really cruddy. And that's all I'm thinking about, staying on them.
A good lesson is partly about eradicating the odd fault, or complete ineptitude in my case, by using specific exercises, and partly about getting some snow miles under your feet. And for sure the most enjoyable and fruitful part of the session for me was following Becky on a non-stop run. The brain has a habit of trying to work too hard, and sometimes, if you make like a kid and copy the person in front, your body just does things you never imagined it was capable of. But I did get a bit concerned when she hit it off full tilt straight down a path.
On the list of safe things to do, straight lining at speed on a board is right up there with spear fishing for sharks. The sensation, for the inexperienced at least, is that at any time you'll catch an edge and pirouette into a terminal faceplant. Shifting gently from one edge to another is a great tip, but in the end you just have to do it again and again to extend your comfort zone.
Well, that was certainly good for me. You know, following you down there, and in some pretty wild places I might add, was just brilliant, because not only could I try and mirror you, but because you were choosing the line, I could just concentrate on all those tips and techniques you gave me. You know, the best bit is when we got onto the steep stuff, just by trying to stay in your tracks, I naturally carved harder without thinking about it and felt my edges. Fantastic.
Good. Now that Pete has got a good grasp of the basics, we can maybe go off and learn some tricks. Before that, let's have a look at how to stay safe on the mountain.
Whether you're a skier, a snowboarder or whatever, Staying out of trouble on what are pretty crowded piste these days is just about obeying some very simple common sense rules. Let's take a run down the piste and show you what we mean.
Snowboarders have been cast by skiers as the scourge of the mountain for their lack of road sense. Perhaps with a little justification. OK, they do tend to take a different line and use the piste differently, but the following rules apply to anyone using the slope.
Now technically the uphill boarder or skier has to keep out of everyone's way on the downhill side, but don't tempt fate by just pulling out. Always look up the hill first before setting off.
We're quickly learning that it's not a good idea to be in the same country, let alone the same slope as Spiky. He starts as the uphill rider and should have given Pete room to make his own line. So even though at the point of impact he's on the downhill side, he's still in the wrong.
Of course, the uphill player holds all the cards. He has full view of what's going on downhill and therefore should be able to predict people's movements and pick a safe line. So when you're overtaking, you are absolutely duty-bound to give those in front a wide berth, just in case they make a sudden change of direction.
But boarders do have a specific vision problem in that they have their back to the world as they turn onto their heel side. So make a special effort to check behind you before making that heel turn. Now it's time for a rest, but where?
This is not a very good place to stop. I'm right in the middle of the piste, in the way of everybody, including the ski schools. Well, I've moved to the side of the piste now, but this is still not a good place to stop because I'm hidden by this huge ridge. If you don't mind, I'm out of here.
The way to stay safe is simply to head for the slopes that best suit your standard and ambitions. Every resort will offer you a free piste map marking the whereabouts and the names of the runs. They're colour-coded according to difficulty, and you'll find a series of markers to highlight the route. Blues are easy runs.
You can be more or less guaranteed that on a blue run, you'll be shallow, wide and with no evil drop-offs. Red pistes are aimed at intermediates. They'll have steeper and possibly narrower sections which will demand better board control. Black runs are for experts only. And a true black run is genuinely steep, and because people are consistently side-slipping and edging hard, the surface is often bumpy, rutted and hard-packed. And to be honest, what makes a run difficult is not so much the gradient as the snow conditions. So what do boarders need to avoid? Ice. Ice can make a blue run feel like a black, although Becky will be offering tips on how to handle it shortly. And those bumps. You see, bumps or moguls are made by skiers, and often there's not a natural way through them for a board. They do represent a bit of a challenge though, but it's more of an exercise in achievement rather than pure free-flowing enjoyment. However, the little bumpettes on a shallow piste are excellent for helping you initiate and then link your turns, something converted skiers will relate to. So what else is there to look out for? It's really just a case of being aware of all the signs, like slowing down at bottlenecks, taking special note of off-piste advice, and not going down closed runs. Believe me, the patrollers don't put the warnings there for a laugh.
Early morning and praise the Lord, Hinterglen is creaking under a blanket of fresh snow. Yes, there's a hint of a blizzard, so do we go back to bed? Or try and have some fun? Well, 10 minutes later I'm dragging a reluctant and rather sceptical Pete up the cable car.
Becky, don't mean to be rude, but I can't help noticing that there's 50 miles an hour wind, the snow's coming in horizontally, it's freezing, and we can't see anything, and we're still going up the hill.
Well, come on, Pete. We're not going to miss a day while we're here for such a short time. I've had some of my best days riding when it's snowing.
And no doubt you got some Eskimo in you, have you?
Nah, seriously. I can show you some things that'll mean we'll have a really good time, and I think we'll keep out of trouble too.
I trust you. Becky, before we go on, I have to say, I can't see much.
Well, it does help to have a good pair of goggles. You need a double lens and an anti-fog system as well. There's one surefire way to get them steamed up, and that's put them on the top of your head.
What's wrong with that then?
Well, all the hot air goes up through your hat and steams them up really quickly.
You calling me hot-headed?
Well, you know, it's been said.
Well, I think you should take me away from all this.
Yeah, I think best plan is we head down to the lower slopes, try to get down into the tree line maybe. We should be very sheltered down there and get much better visibility.
Let's do it.
Come on then, let's go. Common sense dictates that this is not weather to go exploring, and that on whiteout days, it's best to choose an area you're familiar with.
Well, much that pains me to say it, Bex, I'm ready. Now, what's the plan?
Well, first of all, we stick really close together, and that way we can always see each other.
Yep.
And if we head to the side of the piste, we can use these markers to follow our way down.
OK, sounds good. Lead on.
Now stick to me like glue.
Call me Mr. Arrowknight.
The piste markers do indeed show the way, and when the light is flat, they also highlight the contours of the slope, as do the trees, the bushes, and even other people. Anyway, now to the business of boarding in the dark. Try and spot the differences between these two masterful techniques. There's this one, and there's this one. Yes, I know, it's hard to tell, isn't it? Well, maybe not. It does seem that Becky has 20/20 vision because she's flowing over the piste as if it were silky smooth and lit by the equatorial sun. There's not a hint of an involuntary jump nor a moment of imbalance. But as for me, well, I was that unsure of myself that I might as well have been blindfolded.
Oh, Becky, you look so smooth coming down through there. And as for me, because I can't see the bumps properly, every time I hit one, it just chucks me out of control.
OK, Pete, well, you know, slow down a little bit to give yourself a bit more time to feel what's happening. Try using your feet to do the job your eyes normally do. Let them feel the bumps because you can't see them. Well, to be honest, you also need to be a bit more relaxed to react to the bumps as you find them.
So basically, just loosen up everywhere. And apart from that, don't need to change my technique at all?
No, not really. Stay to the same things. Just, you know, chill out. Remember, use your feet to do the job that your eyes normally do.
All right, then, let's give it another go.
OK.
Developing those sensitive feet would come, I reckon, only through putting in a lot more snow miles. But I could at least kid myself I was getting better, because the trees were really breaking up that flat light. My only concern now was that we were eerily alone.
Wait.
What's up?
We've run out of piste markers. I'm not panicking or anything, but where are we?
Right, just listen.
Yeah,
What can you hear?
the subtle sound of a lift.
Yeah, exactly. Remember when we looked at the piste map? We needed to keep the cable car on our left-hand side, and I can hear it over there, so if we head off that way, we should be fine.
I'm so glad you're here. Let's go.
The wondrous byproduct of the bad weather is a load of new soft snow and the possibility for all sorts of new falls. Now, learning to ride in powder need not involve heading miles away from the piste into avalanche country. With a little search, you'll find it surprisingly close to home. Right then, Pete, here we are. Fresh powder, and we're only 10 feet from the piste.
Yeah, so we're in no great danger, are we? But what I'm thinking, Bex, is I'm not that experienced, as you know. And when I learnt to ski, I mean, it took me literally years to master soft snow.
Well, that's the difference. Snowboards were designed, first of all, to go in powder. And to be honest, you can't have more fun on a snowboard.
Well, I can see you're itching to go and leave me here alone. Before you do, is there anything else I need to know about this stuff?
Well, you just don't dig your edges in too hard and lean back a bit. The snowboarder's holy grail. So natural, and really, despite appearing super impressive, it's wickedly easy. Let's see how Pete gets on.
I was expecting to get up and then immediately crumple in a heap. But I was stunned at, compared with skiing, how little effort was needed to turn. And then just as I was about to enter the Extreme Boarding Championships, surely through no fault of my own, it all went dark.
Well, Bex, just for a moment there, that felt absolutely amazing. I mean, just so easy, and you're right, it's actually easier than on piste. But I don't know if you noticed at the end, I lost my nose and a little problem, and I just felt maybe this isn't the right board for the job.
Yeah, I did see that. You can actually get specialist powder boards with great big long noses and short swallowtails. But to be honest, the kit we've got here is great. They're free ride boards, which means they've got more volume in the nose than in the tail, makes them float easier. But I tell you what we could do. Just shift your bindings back a little bit and that'll give you a real, Harley stance.
Right, so I'm back on my tail a bit, the nose comes up, maybe I won't faceplant quite so violently next time.
That's right, make life a bit easier. But hey, we've got all this to play with. Snowboarding in powder is all about rhythm and using one turn to project you into the next. As I said, the basic technique is exactly the same as for the piste, but with a bit more back foot pressure.
Move the bindings back, she says. Sounds like a major rebuild, but a handy screwdriver, 2 minutes and the job's done. And it was definitely worth it. The nose automatically rode a little higher, and just being able to see the thing was a confidence booster, although I still found room to get it all wrong. That plummet was caused by over-edging. Fired up by my carving exercises, I'm leaning the board over too heavily, which is why it's grabbing at the snow, and why my performance lacks Becky's effortless rhythm. It should feel like boarding in slow motion, and ironically that's made easier if you let the board run, because the faster it's going, the higher it rides on the snow, and the easier it is to turn. Of course, the soft stuff does provide a lot of friction, so unless you're prepared to let it run into the fall line, there's a good chance it will just sink and stop as the slope runs out. We have to stress again that we found our practice powder right next to the piste. Now, of course, the more ambitious will walk miles in search of new snow, but this is never something you should do alone, and even then not unless you're in the company of a well-equipped guide or instructor who knows the area intimately and who can assess the conditions and the avalanche risk. Now, what may seem like a rolling field of virgin snow may be hiding holes and dips. Then the only way out may be via near vertical walls sprinkled with solid obstacles. Although it's great fun boarding through the trees, we should respect the flora and fauna, not have to use it as a safety net.
Trip an edge on that and you're gonna die. It's rock hard. I thought snowboarders stayed in bed till midday just to avoid this sort of thing.
Well, you're right, it is pretty hard, but we're lucky we don't have that blue ice, that shiny stuff. Ooh, that's a real snowboarder's no-no. All he can do with that is really slide over it until he gets the next piece of snow to turn on. But here, all we need to do is concentrate on edging really softly, letting the pressure build up gradually, and making no jerky movements. If you follow me, we're going to make some nice gentle turns.
So that is my cue to follow you down, is it?
Yep.
But happily, as Becky mentioned, ice is not something we seek out by choice. You can hardly call yourself a complete boarder unless you can handle the stuff.
Despite not enjoying the conditions, Pete's not doing a bad job of following me down this slope. I grip on the ice by tilting the board gently but confidently and being fluid enough to make adjustments to my balance. Because Pete doesn't have quite as good balance, he doesn't really tip the board enough.
I have to say that even though it was a little noisy and hard on my old knees, this session taught me more about my technique than any other. See, the problem with ice is it's unforgiving and exaggerates the smallest technical flaw in your boarding. In my case, applying unsubtle pressure to the edges. When you watch a real expert, you get the impression of someone in total control of their body, but you also get the feeling that they've chosen the exact right board and setup for their particular brand of lunacy. Now, I'm not one to make excuses. Well, I am actually. But I was beginning to wonder if my gear and not my lack of brilliant technique was maybe, perhaps, hopefully preventing me from obtaining total mastery of the art. And happily, Becky agreed to lead me along the path of enlightenment through the equipment jungle.
Now, Bex, I really do want to learn about this equipment, but you never said your particular jungle was halfway up Mont Blanc.
Well, you quit your snivelling. Look, we're here now.
OK, start me at the beginning.
Well, this is the board that Annabelle and Xander were learning on. It's perfect for it because it's a nice, soft, easy flex, has a large side cut, and fairly short we chose.
Right, so let me get this right. Easy turning, that's big side cut, soft flex, and short. What about chin height?
Yeah, that's about right.
And bindings and boots?
Ideal setup is soft boots and soft bindings.
OK, lead me on. Oh, this is different. What's this for then?
Well, yeah, it is different. It's a twin tip board, and these tend to be a little bit wider than the other ones we look at. That's great for people with slightly bigger feet, and it also means they're really stable when you land jumps.
Wouldn't that width also make it a bit slower to get from toe to heel?
Yeah, it does, but freestylers are more worried about being in the air and landing than they are about making turns on the piste.
So they'll be using soft boots, soft bindings?
Yep, really flexible freestyle boots.
Right, this is all starting to make a lot more sense.
Good.
Take me to the next one. Well, I recognise this one. It's the one I've been using. Seems quite similar in shape to Xander and Annabelle's board.
Yep, it is. It's still a directional board, and that makes it very versatile. Big difference is it has a progressive side cut, which is going to make it really grippy in faster turns.
Is that what I think it is?
Yeah, that's the wood core you can see in there. Wood makes a board really snappy.
Snappy as in it's going to break snappy?
Pete, hardly. Snappy is kind of sort of springy.
OK, so a good all-terrain board for the more advanced rider because that snappiness, springiness gives them a bit more control at speed and turns?
Yep, yep.
What about the boots and bindings?
Well, a free ride setup, and that means the boots are going to be a little bit stiffer.
OK, on to the next. Wow, look at this sexy beast. GTX. This must be the full-on racing machine, right?
Yep, it's long. That's going to make it really stable. It's really narrow here, and that makes it very quick from edge to edge. And the other thing is it's quite stiff. That's going to make it really hold on to turns.
OK, so with the beginner's board, we had a soft flex to make easy turning. So I guess with this, you've got to be motoring to make it turn, eh?
Absolutely, and hopefully we're going to be moving in a forwards direction. It's the only board that doesn't have a kick up on the tail, so it's just not designed to be ridden fakie.
Fakie backwards, so could be the one for me.
Well, you know, it's very, very specialist. To ride this board, you're going to need plate bindings and hard boots. But, you know, I think I've got something that might be a little bit more versatile.
Let me keep this, though.
Oh, Pete, put it down, put it down, put it down. Check this one out, Pete. It's a real freestyle board, but it does have some alpine tendencies.
Explain yourself.
Well, if you look at the tail, although it's still quite square, it has a bit of a kick up.
Not wider, though.
Yeah, and that means you can use it with your freestyle boots, you know, slightly lesser angles. It's great to use with clickers.
So, still good for speed, but a lot more versatile than the old race machine.
Yeah, it's brilliant in border cross, where you need speed and air.
Right, Bex, you see me ride. What really is best for me?
Well, you know, I think I still have something up my sleeve. Now that your technique's improved a bit, I think you might have quite a lot of fun on this one.
Certainly looks a business, and it's so light.
Yes, it's stiffer too. It's going to be a bit more challenging, but top freestyle performance.
I'll still be able to carve with it, though, eh?
Absolutely.
Now, there are no bindings on it just yet.
Well, that is our next job. We've got to go and sort them out, set them up so they're absolutely perfect, just for you.
Now, I really need to know about that, so let's go. No, before we go, what are you using?
Well, it's actually very similar to yours. The biggest difference is a carbon layer that it has in it. It makes it really reactive.
Good for everything?
Oh, park, pipe, absolutely everything. That's why I love it.
To the piste. Well, we're nearly on the piste, I suppose.
Yep, not far away, but this is a good spot to set the bindings up before we go anywhere. Now, if you look at the holes down the board, it gives you, I don't know, probably about a zillion different places to position the bindings on. And to try out these different setups and see how they feel and how they affect your riding, well, you're going to give it a shot on each different one.
Right, should be interesting.
Oh, I hope so. Well, we can try with the bindings as wide as they'll go, something like that, down to as narrow as they'll go. We can also try them with super steep angles, something like 60 on the front, 45 on the back.
Racy.
You could try them very, very flat, like that. And then we can also try having them both right towards the front of the board and both down towards the back of the board.
Okay.
But the first one, I think, will set you up with is having the bindings as wide as they can possibly go.
This could be very entertaining. Becky wouldn't tell me what to expect from the different settings. Firstly, she said that was for her to know and for me to find out, and secondly because what ended up feeling good was down to board design, your size and weight, and personal preference. Now, I thought a wide stance would make me more stable around the corners, but instead I found it made me pressurise the ends of the board rather than the middle, which made it harder to carve and made me wash around the turns. It also made me feel a bit wooden and stopped me bending my legs, so I had sliding problems on the steeper slopes. But on the positive side, well, I'm not much of an aerial artist yet, but when I did try a hop, the wide stance made me feel much more stable in the air and on landing. And I can see why this is often the preference of the freestylers. With the feet close together, I expected to be all over the place, and was to start with, but after a couple of runs I began to relax and got well into it. With the weight concentrated in the middle, it was easy to bend the board to make it carve. It felt natural to take up a more flexed, dynamic position, so I had far better control on the steep. I felt a lot more sensitive to what was going on underneath me, and so far this was the most in tune I'd felt with a board. But back to the aerial routine, and it felt a lot less forgiving. I guess I had yet to find the ultimate compromise. With the bindings forward, I would surely be standing in the wrong place on this directional board. In fact, it seemed to turn really easily, but only if I kept the speed down. With so little board out in front of me, there always seemed a danger of piling over the handlebars, and I never felt like cutting loose. In this position, I felt I could potentially carve the hardest and steepest and get real acceleration out of the turn, but it would take some getting used to and the development of a slightly more delicate back foot. Now, I was really looking forward to this, because I've got a touch of the boy racer in me, and I've seen the severe angles the good guys use on their alpine slalom boards, but I can tell you they're welcome to it. It was scary. I felt my cartilages were going to pop out. I had no control of the edges, and anyone within 100 yards of me was in severe danger. I guess that's just a very specialist stance for a very specialist board that needs a lot of practice. And finally, I tried them dead square at 90 degrees to the board. I like having them wide apart. It made me feel a bit wooden. It was harder to get dynamic. It didn't feel as natural to leg steer, and as you can see, I'm tending to slip around rather than carve. But there was a good side, and on the tricks front, it felt almost normal to ride backwards and even try the odd spin. Hey, Spikey, what's happening?
Oh, yo, geezer, how you going, man?
Good, have you been customising your setup like I have then?
Yeah. This time it's duck style, man, you know, like...
Duck?
Yeah, you want to hit the angles, hit the handles, get some fat air, you know?
That's radical. So, these freestylers do that? That's what you're up to, is
I'm
it?
going pipe fitting.
Blimey, good luck. Deep respect, man.
Yeah. Do it, man, do it.
Good luck.
Cool. Massive.
Pete, after all your experiments, what did you feel?
Well, I certainly didn't like the extreme width. I much prefer them close together, but I think somewhere in between, but nearer close, if you like.
Yeah, I think that's what we've got here. I've set them on about almost 21 inches apart from each other and a couple of inches back from the centre.
So that'll give me a bit better performance for free ride and powder, yeah?
Yep, you've got a lot more nose there to help you float a bit better. Also, with the angles, we've got about 30 degrees on this front disc and I think it's about 9 here on the back one.
That's good, because I didn't like the extremes either, so that again is somewhere in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah. The next job is grab your boot and put it in this binding.
All right.
As you can see, your toes stick over the edge way, way more than your heels do. So what we're going to do is undo all of these bolts here and move this whole unit back so that we can centre the boot across the width of the board, and that way your toes stick over the same amount as your heels do.
Excellent.
I noticed that you haven't got a stomp pad on here yet.
Well, I know it sounds a bit noncy, but I do like that graphic, and it'd be criminal to hide it.
Well, you have actually got a couple of options. When you're customising your setup, there are loads of different things you can do. I think we could try a few of these little bubbles.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's much
So
better. I can see through then.
We'll pop some of these on. Before you need to set off though, you've got to just try the straps on so that we can adjust these using all the different holes here. Adjust them so that they fit snugly and then cut off all the excess.
Right. Another thing I've noticed, these spoilers are adjustable. I've left them where they are, but what effect do they have?
Well, you can move them, and the more forwards you put them, then the more grip that gives you on your heel side turn, because it gives you a bit of leverage.
Right.
One last point to note, whenever you go out on your board, give all your nuts and bolts a quick check to make sure they're nice and tight, because they do every now and again work themselves loose.
You've got a few extra bits here, I've noticed. What are they all for?
Well, I did see a piece that I thought might quite suit you, see?
I know bloke would love that.
Yeah. Leashes. You must have a leash on your board. You've got all these sort of jazzy things that you can get. But I see the one you've got is just quite a simple, and that hooks onto a ring on your boot.
Simple is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, there are lots of things you can get. These toe jams, for example, stick on the end of your bindings if your toes flap over the edge to give you extra pressure and leverage there. So play around with them and get a really good setup that suits you.
We're getting there, aren't we?
We are.
We're nearing the end of our story, but it won't have escaped your notice that by and large borders attract a nutty element. And if you head off into one of the many fun parks and hang around with them long enough, you'll soon find yourself spending more time off the snow than on it.
Well, Pete, I suppose I could spend the next 2 hours telling you how to do all this stuff. And then again, of course, there's always boarding school too. There you go, Pete. That's just about the end of our session. I know you've worked really hard, but how have you enjoyed it?
Well, Bex, I've got to thank you for basically rescuing my snowboarding career, which was on the rocks. I honestly didn't know there was that much to it, and especially in that last session. You gave me so many little things to work on. I know I'm nowhere as good as you yet, but I've got the incentive now to go out and practice all that. And I've got to say, I know you're off on a powder run with some of your mates, and I know you're sick of the sight of me. But would you mind awfully if I just tagged along?
Well, I don't see why not. The more the merrier.
That's okay, great.
Come on, Daddy. But just open your eyes and then it edges out.
Easy. Yeah. So can I come and cut some cables with you, yeah? Go and do some piece stuff.
Yeah, that's fine to join in. You know what we're doing.
All the merrier.
You just watch out for bears.
easy avec le toboggan, monsieur. I've still got a tripod up my arse. What you got here then? Oh, copters, man. Wicked. Give us a go, geezer.
Are you sure you ain't trained helicopter pilot or what?
No, mate, don't need lessons for this, mate. It's easy. I've got a stimulator at home. Look, oi, give us the controls, mate. No, look, you've got a joystick. You turn it off to the right. Come round, you're going to go and face the aliens. There they are, down there. Mental, mate, mental.
To keep your board in good condition, you should get it serviced at your local snowboard shop. Getting the service done when you come back from holiday will keep the base from drying out over the summer and will ensure your board is ready to ride the next time you go. Sharp edges grip well on ice and a wax base runs smoother as well as faster. There are a couple of jobs you can do safely that will enhance the performance of your board. Use an edging stone to take the rough spots from the edges. Work from tip to tail, keeping the stone at 90 degrees to the board. Just wipe off the board to remove any loose filings. Use a warm iron to drip the wax onto the base. Try to put the wax evenly along the whole length of the board. The next job is to work the wax into the base. Waxes are made to suit different temperatures. This red wax is used for warm weather. Spread the wax over the base, keeping the iron moving so you don't overheat. Feel underneath with your hand. If it starts to get hot, move on. Remove the excess wax using a plastic scraper. Finish off by cleaning the edges and you're ready to ride.